Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Capital One Bank and Chase Commercial Term Lending, the Witkoff Group, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Greenberg Traurig, Perfect Building Maintenance, Genova Burns. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Colliers International NYC, CPEX Real Estate Services, Cushman & Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Fisher Brothers, First Nationwide Title Agency, Flushing Bank, Foley & Lardner, Friedman, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investment Developers, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Chairman USRealty.com, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, N.A., Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Newbanks, MHP Real Estate Services, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rosewood Realty Group, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Sterling Risk, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Continuum Company, the CUNY TV Foundation, the Moynihan Group, and these friends.
A draper, a bar boy, comes over to America, sells, some cattle, comes over here, gets a job as a porter, New York Athletic Club, gets involved working in a bar, finds another bar, works for P.J. Moriarty. But then, all of a sudden, he and his buddies see an article in the New York Times. Maybe I'll be a proprietor. Maybe I'll open up this bar, this restaurant. 1967, 48 years later, there's only one Neary's, and there's only one Jimmy Neary. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Michael, my pleasure.
So tell me about your parents. They're from what town? In
Tubbercurry, County Sligo, in the west of Ireland.
They were farmers?
Actually, my mother, she was an orphan. She was born in England. And her mom died when she was a year old. And her father brought her back to Ireland, to an aunt and an uncle. The reason she came back was he was very ill. Everybody was sick back those times. And he died a year later, so she was an orphan at 2 years of age. And she was brought up by a brother and sister she called them Uncle Tom and Aunt Winnie.
And your dad's family, police?
Yeah, he was actually, this was when Ireland was under English rule, and he was an RIC man, Royal Irish Constabulary.
How did Mother meet your father?
Actually, it was a
good.
Yes.
Somebody said it was a good-looking woman over there, right? There was something like that.
Yes. My mother was a very attractive woman, and at Mass in Tubbercurry, she was at Mass, and a neighbour, she said to him, "Who's that fine-looking gentleman that's here every Sunday at Mass?" And Jim Brun, the neighbour, said, "Katie," that's what he called my mother, "Katie, I know very well who he is, and I know all the family. And you have a beautiful farm here, and he's a very eligible bachelor."
So she was the one who had the farmer.
Yes, she had the farm. She had the farm, yes, from her aunt and her uncle. She inherited the farm. Yes.
So your dad then got involved with the farm?
Yes, he did. Yeah. And they met, I guess, around 1921 or 22. They got married in 1923.
1923.
Yes.
And you had a couple of brothers and sisters.
Yeah,
Tell me
my brother, Monsignor Neary, he was born in 1924, and he became Vicar General of the Diocese of Monterey, California.
Right, and he came over first.
He was the first out
He
here.
was the first one who was sponsored by
He was Colonel Lennon. He was a colonel in Los Angeles, and he was ordained actually in All Hallows College in Dublin, where my brother was ordained.
Your sister, who's the nurse.
Yes, she's married to the retired detective sergeant from Dublin Castle. And then I had another brother, John, came out here, and the woman that sponsored me sponsored my brother John.
We're going to get to that
Yes,
in a second.
right, yeah.
So now you were saying to me, you went to school, you were 14 years of age when
Yes.
you went to grammar school, up to 14.
Yes.
And then you went to technical school.
Yes, for a year and a half, yes.
And then, so how did you get the job in the drape store, in the drapery place?
Well, my brother had worked there before he came out to America.
So what did you do in the drape store? You said the drape store was interesting, but the drape store was attached to the...
Beautiful little bar, lounge. And that was my goal, to get in there. But I worked behind the drapery store quite a bit. But every chance customers came in, I got a shot to go into the bar. And that's where I wanted to be. And eventually that's where I went up, partying in Murray Ards. I was with him for 8 years.
So you're at the drape store for 8 years,
yeah.
and then your mother had this friend, you were telling me, this woman
And
who came over from America every couple of years.
Yes.
And she said to your mother, do you think Jimmy would like to come to America? Was that how it came about?
She said to me, would you like to go to America? I says, I would love to go to America. Well, she says, I'll sponsor you.
Now, getting sponsored was, you told me, was interesting.
Yes.
Because you had to go down to the government
Yes.
for the sponsorship, and they had to check that you were healthy enough to
That's
come
correct.
over.
That is
But
right.
there was another thing that they asked you to do, to put your hand down on the Bible,
That's right.
saying that once you come to America, you're going to join the military.
Well, they gave you 90 days to register for the draft. And the stipulation was, if you get called, you serve.
So tell me about the trip. You came over. Now,
I came
before
by
you
ship.
tell me about the trip,
Yes.
how did you have the money for the trip? You had some goats and some other...
I didn't have any goats. No, I had lambs.
You had lambs.
I had lambs. My mother gave me, I had a couple of lambs, and my mother gave me the grass for the lambs, right? And when we sheared the sheep, I gave her the wool for the pay for the grass that the lambs used. And it was at the August Fair Market Day in Tubbercurry, and I sold 14 lambs that day. Paddy McCarrick.
And you got 88 pounds, right?
Actually, no, that was my fare. I got 100, and I got 14 pounds. They were very expensive at that time. Later on, you got them for nothing. Couldn't give them away. I got 196 pounds for my 14 lambs.
Right. And then you used 88 of the pounds
Yes.
for your trip to
Yes,
come
well,
over on the boat.
That's right. Matt Devine was the travel agent in the town, and I went in.
So when do you arrive on the shores of America?
And I'll never forget it. I arrived on 11/11/1954. And when I arrived, it was Armistice Day. And when I went to bed that night, it was Veterans Day.
So it was, as you said to me,
Changed.
so you arrived and you end up because somebody you knew was in the Bronx, right?
Yes, yeah.
A rooming house in the Bronx.
Yeah, Mrs. McSorley, she was an aunt to the woman that sponsored me. And I stayed with her, and then I went looking for a job.
And you get a job. Now, you had a friend who worked for AMP, or was it your brother?
My brother worked for AMP.
Your brother
Yes.
came over, worked for AMP.
Yes.
And this other Neary gets a job working with the boxes being thrown at you, right?
I worked in the AMP for 4 days, 5 days, and I was at the bottom of the chute. And they were unloading these big trucks on 3rd Avenue. And I was getting hit boxes right, left, and centre. I said, this is not for me. If I wanted to do this for nothing, I'd have stayed
Now,
in
this
Ireland.
was 3rd Avenue in Manhattan, and you
Yes.
were living in the Bronx
In the
with
Bronx,
your brother in
yes.
the rooming house.
Yes.
So, but then what happens is you go to an organization who says, we're going to help you get a job, right?
Actually, a friend of mine, Martin Brett was his name. He was from home, Tubbercurry, where I came from too. And he says to me, go down and see Maureen Mulcahy. I never forgot her name, at the Irish Institute on West 48th Street.
And what did Miss McCary say?
So anyhow, I says to her, will I ever get a job in New York? She says, I have a job for you. I says, where? So she sent me up to see a man. He was the head porter in the New York AC. Ed Walsh was his name. And I went up there, and I was afraid, because on account of my height, that I wouldn't get a job, right? So anyhow, he turned round. I told that to Miss Mulcahy too, right? So anyway, she says, you go up and see the man. So I went up to see him. And he says to me, you'll start here tomorrow morning. And by the way, he says, you're the tallest person to have this job in 27 years.
So you get a job as a porter, and you work with, and you told me you started working at 7 o'clock in the morning.
That's right. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I got $27 a week.
And so what happens over there from a porter that you then get involved as a bar boy?
P.J. Moriarty, he had a couple of restaurants at the time, and he was a member there. And he gave me a part-time job from 6 in the evening till 12 at night, 6
So
nights
which
a week.
was the first P.J. Moriarty restaurant that you went to work for?
On 3rd Avenue, under the 3rd Avenue L.
So you worked as a porter during the
Morning.
day?
That's right.
And then in the evenings, you went to P.J. Moriarty.
I did, yes.
Over there.
Yeah.
And subsequently, you got a job as a bartender also at the AC, or?
Oh no! That was I was a bar boy at PJ Murray's. I was a porter. I swept the sidewalks. I did everything. As a matter of fact, I put out his fake hydrant, so that he could park the car. And I worked for him from 6 in the evening, 12 at night, 6 nights a week for $24.
So you're working over there,
Yeah.
and then what happens one day?
I'm there a little over a year and a bit, and I was up in the mountains for a weekend, on Labour weekend, and I was staying in a place called Tarpies. And my brother called me. He says, you better come home. I says, why? He says, you're called to the army. You're going to be sworn in on September the 18th.
So you get sworn in, and where do you go during your military?
I went to Fort Dix first and processed in Fort Dix, New Jersey.
And we have that picture of you as a young soldier.
That's right. And then we get on, we woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, told to pack our bags, break down the beds, turn in the sheets, mattress and everything. And we did that, and they walked us down to the marches to the mess hall. We had breakfast there. Then we were put on trucks, and we were duffel bag. We didn't know where we were going. Got in the trucks, we went to a railroad station in Fort Hood. The first stop was Chicago. We had no idea where we were going. So we stopped in Chicago, and we were out on the platform. We thought we'd go to see Chicago, but the MPs wouldn't let you off the platform. We only got a break for an hour and 2 hours on this platform. Back onto the train, and the next stop was Fort Hood, Texas.
So you're at Fort Hood, Texas.
Yeah.
And where'd you leave after Fort Hood, Texas?
Fort Hood, Texas, then after 12 months we went to Germany.
And you were in Germany, and you come back. So you come back, and you have the job again at the AC as a porter.
Yes, correct.
And you also were able to go back to P.J. Moriarty.
I had the same 2 jobs when I came back, because when you were in the Army, you were guaranteed your job when you came back.
So you come back. Now, at this time, how old are you?
When I came back, 26, 28.
28, so this is what year? This is 1958?
That to be 48. No, 58.
1958.
That's correct, yeah.
So how do you meet your dear Elaine?
Eileen.
Eileen.
Actually, I used to play golf in Van Cortlandt Park with a guy called Kevin Higgins and Jerry Ross. We were all in the same business. So anyhow, Kevin Higgins came into Moriarty's one night, and he had this girl with him. So they sat up at the bar. I want you to meet this character, Neary. So I said hello, and he had a bottle of Budweiser, and she had a ginger ale, and they sat down and he took off.
Right. He brought in this woman, and you thought it was her date.
I thought she was his date.
His date, correct.
That's right. So anyhow, they sat down, they had a beer and a ginger ale, then sat dinner and left. A couple of weeks later, they're back in again. Same thing, beer and a ginger ale, had their dinner and left. A couple of weeks later, 6 girls came in. I hadn't talked to Eileen I'm talking to you longer than I ever talked to Eileen in my life, right? And there was one girl from home, I knew her. The others I didn't know at all. And she came up and she says to me, do you know why we're here tonight? I said, I have no idea why you're here. She says, Eileen picked this place. I said, that was nice of her. Do you know why she did it? I said, no, she'd like a date with you. I said, she's going with Kevin Higgins. She says, she is not.
So she has the date, but the date, you nearly screwed up the relationship because you wanted to go to see a movie with John Wayne, and she didn't. What happened on that?
Well, I was going out with her for a couple of months, and then you were going to movies, and turned around, and I wanted to see John Wayne and the Four Sons of Katie Elder, and she wanted to see Gary, what was his name? No, Clark Gable, in some love movie. So we decided wherever we get parking nearest the movie house. So we're on 86th Street, and we're coming across, and a guy pulls out on the south side of 86th Street, and across the street, RKO, John Wayne and the Four Sons of Katie Elder.
And she fell asleep, right?
She's snoring, right?
But later on, she did get married to you. But let's talk about the time when you were getting married, because you were getting married on a Sunday. Your brother, the Monsignor, came in.
He didn't flew in from California.
He flew in from California. And it's the Saturday night, Saturday afternoon, and you're in the Bronx, and you had to come back for the rehearsal. And what happens?
Actually, we got
no
married
telephones, no cell phones
No.
at that time.
Actually, the rehearsal was on Friday night because the marriage was on Saturday. But anyhow, turned around, and my brother and I are driving out to Queens because we live in the Bronx. Break down in the Grand Concourse. Oh my God, now we'll be all late. So anyhow, we have to wait to get the car to push it in near a hydrant, and my brother's looking for a police car to make sure that we don't get towed away, because he was in the police department. So he turned around and the cops came along and says, "We'll push it in for you." Now we have to wait for a taxi. We're supposed to be there for the rehearsal at 7 o'clock. We get there at 20 to 8. And the girls are all crying. He's left her, we're going to leave her now at the altar and all this kind of stuff. There's no way we can tell her we're coming. But eventually we got a taxi. And we get out there at 20 to 8. And I said, before you bawl me out, I says, we have a good excuse. We're coming for a taxi because we broke down in the Bronx. Yes.
So you get married to Eileen.
Yeah.
And subsequently, you're working at the Barleycorn. So one day, you and your buddy see an ad in the New York Times?
That's right. Actually, I flew home to Ireland to bury my mother, and I came back, and I brought back Irish sausages and bacon, which you could bring it back at that time, right? And Eileen cooked breakfast from Brian Mulligan. He was a bartender like myself, and his wife, and they came up, and he had the Times. And we started looking, and we found this place on 57th Street.
So you find this place on 57th Street, and what was it, $30,000?
It was 30,000, but
$30,000 with $5,000 with
actually, I put $500 down.
$500 down,
Yes.
$29,500
Yes.
over there
Yeah.
on a place, which had been built in like 1865?
1869.
1869.
Yes.
And you and your buddy over there, both bartenders.
Yes, right, yeah.
Now, what's interesting, you sign the lease for this place.
Yes.
You buy this this restaurant bar.
Right.
And you won the luck of the coin, right?
Yeah, flip of a coin.
Flip of the coin.
Flip of the coin, it's either Neary or Mulligan.
It would have been Mulligan's.
It would have been Mulligan's.
It became Neary's.
Yes.
And you really didn't have much money at all. So what happened was the initial bar stools,
Everything.
whatever was there.
Yes. We turned around, we had 2,500 each.
And
And between that, we got the license and the liquor.
so you open up on this austere date of March 17th, 1960.
67.
67.
Yeah.
And what's happening on that date? It's a St. Patrick's Day parade,
Right.
but it's a sheet of ice.
It is, yeah.
And
We didn't do too much business, I'll tell you.
you didn't do too much
We
business
did not.
up
We
there.
got a nice crowd, but nothing like we would have. Because first of all, we didn't even know we were going to be opened.
Right. But what happens is, you were bartenders.
Yeah.
And you've had this relationship that people don't want to work for you for so many years.
Yes.
I mean, you've been in business for 48 years, and you have waitresses and people who've been there 48, 44, 38. I mean, it's like a family.
Yes.
But what Neary's has done is, it's been a place where people want to be.
Yes.
Who's that author who loves you?
Mary Higgins Clark.
So what does she do about you? She wrote all these
She has me in 28 books, 21 books, 21 books.
21 books,
Yes.
and I understand that you have solved cases for her.
I did. Loves music, loves to dance. I solved that murder.
You solved that murder
I did,
over
yeah.
there.
It may be fictitious, but I solved the murder in the book.
How these people find about Neary's? How John Glenn end up at Neary's after he was circled?
Actually, a customer that knew him very well, and he was in New York City. And he brought him in, and I was working the night shift, and Brian was working the day shift. And he brought him in. I got there at 6 o'clock. The minute I walked in, I was just up maybe 9 months at the time. And I knew from the customers, I heard them saying, he doesn't know who's here. So I'm not going to look, because whoever he is, he's got to be in that corner, in that first booth there, right, when you walk in on the left. Because I couldn't see that in the corner, right? So I went straight into the kitchen. And I looked out through the glass window and the door from the kitchen. I said, oh my God, if we're never here another week, at least we've had the first man to orbit the earth in the restaurant.
Now, people go to Neary's. Let's talk about George Coleman.
Yes.
George Coleman was a businessman.
He was in real estate, yes.
He was in real estate. And Mr. Coleman would come in nearly every night?
Yes. Well, actually, I met him in the New York Athletic Club when I worked there. He was a member. And when I was in Moriarty's, he was a customer. And then the night we opened, he came in, and he never missed a day, only Christmas Day when we were closed, for 12 years.
Right. So on Christmas Day, and you know, you never close except for Christmas Day.
Yes.
And on that Christmas Day, you were worried about him, so you went over to his house where he lived.
No, on Christmas Day, we always had him to our home
right,
for dinner.
Right, he came to your home. You always invited him.
Yeah.
But the day after, you went over there,
yes,
and he had passed on.
Yeah, it was August 26th, 1979. He didn't show up at 20 after 5. 5:30, I'm on the sidewalk looking for him. He's not out there. I decided to go to the building. I had the super go up and check, and he came down. He says, George has passed on. He had a heart attack.
Now, what was interesting is that George felt that you were a family,
yes,
and he left you $30,000,
yes,
and he left
Brian, my partner, $30,000.
$30,000.
He left Liz,
your waitresses,
$10,000, who's still there to this day. Yeah, and Aidan Cahill, the bartender. He left him $10,000. He left $80,000.
Now, what's also interesting, it's the story of this watch, one of your other patrons.
Yeah.
This watch, which was given to him by Walter O'Malley.
Yes.
He was what?
His name was Colonel Anthony Story, and he was pilot and aide for 10 or 12 years to General Douglas MacArthur. General Douglas MacArthur was a lifetime Dodger fan. And when he got disbanded by President Truman, he lived in the Wall of Astoria, and Walter O'Malley invited General MacArthur and Colonel Story to Ebbets Field to a football match, baseball game, and he gave each one of them a lifetime pass, which is this gold watch, autographed. And Colonel Story, on Thanksgiving Day, 1990, he gave me that watch. He says, Colonel, I can't take it. He says, you have to. I have people coming in looking after me. I'm afraid I might lose it. And I want nobody else to have it, only you.
Now, how all of the political people going back, the only one who was Mayor Beam, but
yes,
he didn't want to come in because he was
shorter than me.
That's right. But you've had all of the mayors,
yes,
Mayor Giuliani,
yes,
you know.
The only mayor that was never there from Wagner to Mayor Bloomberg was Mayor Beam.
Right. So you've had them, and Governor Carey was...
he was a congressman when he first came.
Right. He came over, and he brought in the... Did he bring in Bush?
No, he was the one that actually... Mayor Bloomberg had moved away. Mayor Bloomberg was living on 57th Street. And then he had moved away, and he had kind of forgot about it. So when he was running for mayor the first time, Governor Carey was with him. And he said, have you ever been to Neary? He said, my God, he says, I used to go there when I lived on 57th Street. Governor Carey says, we'll go there for dinner tonight.
And Mayor Bloomberg
yes,
did a major thing. He took you on his private plane when he gave that dedication for the Fighting 69.
Yeah, General Michael Corcoran was from Sligo, the War of Independence, and he was going over to unveil a monument to General Corcoran. And he took me over to Tubbercurry with him. And
all of the cardinals have always been there. Even, you know, the late Cardinal Egan, you know, he used to like coming by there.
Yeah,
Cardinal O'Connor,
yes,
Cardinal Dolan,
right,
you know,
yes,
this is a favorite place over there. Now, the Bushes were there. The Bushes are always there. One of the relatives was there last night, right?
Yeah, President George Herbert Walker's brother, Bush Jonathan, was there last night, yeah.
How does Mr. Neary, who's a little too short to play football, have these famous giant rings. You and your daughter own like the Giants from
Yes.
the Maras?
Oh, love it, yeah. Actually, I met the Maras when I worked at Moriarty's back in the 50s. And Timmy Mara, who gave me the rings, he used to come in there, and I had big fake rings in the case. And he says to me one time, "What are you doing with those rings in there?" I said, "What? I paid $25 each for them." He says to me, "You look out for next Tuesday for FedEx." He went down to Florida, and he FedExed the Super Bowl rings to me, his own.
Right, so
Yes.
so you got his rings.
Yes.
But you're also a very avid fan over there. So what happened was you went to the games. You've been to the
Yeah.
Super Bowl a couple of times, right?
Yes, I have, yeah. I've been to all the giant Super Bowl wins, yes, all four. And a few other ones as well, yes.
And Cardinal Dolan had you and Eileen, before she passed on, go to his installation?
No, it was Una. Eileen had passed before he became Cardinal, yes.
Right.
Yeah, but Una and I were at Cardinal Dolan's and Cardinal O'Brien's elevation in Rome.
So let's talk a little bit about family, okay? You have
I had
you have a son,
Yes.
and his name?
Patrick.
Patrick.
Yeah, he's 6'4", and actually he is a federal agent.
Right, he's
Bureau.
with the government.
Yeah.
He's a governmental agency.
Yes, yes.
And besides...
And then I have my other brother, John. He was a policeman in New York here for 20 years.
right, and your daughters. You have two daughters.
Some 3 daughters.
Oh.
Yeah. Una's a partner in Goldman Sachs.
Right, and then you have another daughter.
And Marie got her master's in criminal justice, but she gave it up to teach in parochial school
Right.
in Assumption Parish.
Right, and then your other daughter.
Yes, she has her master's in education, special education, and she's teaching in St. Margaret's down in Delaware.
How many grandchildren do you have?
I've got 8.
And the names of the 8 grandchildren?
My eldest is Brianna, and that's Patrick's and Adriana's children, Patrick, Adriana, Brianna, Sophia, and Patrick are their 3 children. And Anne-Marie and Chip have 3 boys, Ryan, Danny, and Matthew, and Eileen and Tracy.
Okay. You got,
Yes, 2 children, Gavin and Christina.
And the girls help out Dad in the restaurant, right?
Yeah.
You're the proprietor.
Yes.
You've never had a drink in your life,
Yes.
but you're always there
Yeah,
364 days a year.
that's correct.
364,
Yeah.
and you greet everybody, and everybody feels like at home at Neary's, right?
Well, I will tell you, as I say, I have never worked a day in my life. It's a thrill every day to go in there because, like yourself, you never know who's coming to the door next.
And I'm so happy that I've had the opportunity to have the legendary Jimmy Neary on my show.
Michael, I'm so honored to be invited by you. So honored.